Hello and welcome to our very first episode for season 2022 of SuperCoach Edge. My name's Damon and it's a new season, but joining me for the second official season on the airwaves is an old face in my trusty co-host Liam. How are you, mate? How was the off season? Did you get up to much?
The off season was spent ruining some missed opportunities, some decisions that were probably not the best. It was a season that started okay and then fizzled, but it's all right. Been through a big preseason, flicking through some spreadsheets, calculating some averages, and I'm hoping for a bigger and better things this year.
Could you say that, Liam? Sorry to cut you off there, but the buzzword of a preseason is like, he's had the best preseason yet. Are you setting records on the track? Like, I heard Jakey Stringer was doing pretty well. 2K time trial.
Yeah, actually running 2Ks for the first time apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm better at my scrolling. I've reverse trades a few times, just practicing that.
Yeah,
getting my time down. It's getting it down.
The finger working
to 0.2 of a second, which is pretty good.
Impressive. That is a preseason best. Well done.
It is. So I'm pretty happy with that. But now speaking of this year, Damon, I've noticed things seem a little bit different. Is there something we need to tell the good folk of the SuperCoach Edge community?
Yes. Speaking of setting personal records and personal bests over the preseason, it's fair to say that, Liam, we have stepped up our game for our second season. And if you're already watching us on YouTube, it kind of gives away the secret, I think. But for those of you listening to our podcast in the traditional format as, of course, a poddy, yes, we can reveal for season 2022, we are delivering each episode in both podcast and vodcast format. So
exciting stuff.
If you prefer to stare at our mugs, which I don't know why you would, but this is yours. We're giving you the decision now that, if you want to consume your content visually, and we might mix it up, might wear some different outfits during the year, maybe, Liam. Might do one shirtless, which will really turn off the viewers. But if you are that way inclined, jump onto YouTube and catch us on our brand new channel. So how does the same go, Liam?
Yeah, just welcome to my channel. You can like, subscribe, and comment. Just simply search SuperCoach Edge and you're all set. And you'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at SuperCoach Edge, where you'll get all the latest news and analysis this preseason.
I like that American accent that you put on as well. Very apt because a lot of vloggers, I guess you could. I feel like I'm an old man now. Like I'm kind of at that next stage, that next generation where I'm looking down at the young whippersnappers and the youth of today and shaking my head. But back in my day, I used to wear an onion in my belt. That's the style at the time. But now we are one and the same now as the younger generation. So
got to keep up with the times.
Yes, but we also have some exciting news, Liam, regarding our Patreon, which we're officially kicking off for season 2022, which features, and a lot of people have actually. Yeah, they've been wanting. I think they've been calling for this, and it does feature a cash league, but on top of that, exclusive bonus content and more, which we'll go into more detail later in the show. Now, just a change of tack, Liam. Preseason, it's a time for dreaming, a time for shooting for the stars, and just obtaining ultimate glory. You've whacked a team together, which no doubt you'll adjust 1,000 times over, but I don't know. I'm feeling something in. I'm going to say it. I'm feeling something in my loins.
Oh.
And after 15 plus years of playing our humble game of SuperCoach, I think I have the 50K in the bag.
In the bag? It's big. It's a big statement.
I'm shooting for the stars. That's it. Just
fair
preseason best. That.
I'm always wanting you to win, Damon. But unfortunately, I've got my eyes on the prize too. And it can be some stiff competition, hopefully.
Yes. And we know what happened last year, don't we, Liam? With
last year.
I came from
2021
just absolutely nowhere. You can call me Stephen Bradbury. I reckon I'm Stephen Bradbury.
It was literally Stephen Bradbury because I felt like I fell over and just crashed and burned. But anyway, let's kick off the first segment. Brand new preseason exclusive segment, might I add.
Exclusive.
I just want to break the rules.
You're joking. Not another one? Oh, for God's sake, I can't stand this.
Now, Liam, unless you've been living under a rock and if you're that way inclined, fair enough. But if you're like the rest of us, you'll already know that there are some new rules being introduced to SuperCoach in season 2022. So let's take a look at the new rules and some potential things to consider for your strategy heading into the season. Now, first cab off the rank, I guess. You'll be getting 5 extra trades to start the season. So that's a total of 35. And I don't know how many we got last season. I think it was pushing upwards of 40.
It was closer to 40 off memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you trade happy like myself, you might be a little bit sad, but they have increased the starting number of total trades, which is obviously to help counter any setbacks we have due to that pesky COVID. So, yeah, I mean, that's something to factor in from the get-go.
Yeah, and I'd say that's just to sort of counter having to add those extra trades later on. So people have a bit of foresight, I guess, over it. And then in addition to those 5 extra trades, you'll also have 5 trade boosts. So different rule, but they can be used in any given round to increase the maximum number of trades for that given round. So these aren't 5 extra trades as such. They will obviously come out of that 35 total. But it lets you make more than the 2 trades per round or the 3 during the buys. So essentially just gives you a bit more flexibility. If there's, a couple of cash cows, but there's 3 cash cows in a round, then you can probably use a trade boost to get them all in.
Yeah. And that's a godsend for me because just thinking back to my previous years, that's always the case for me where I almost have to sacrifice a cow. I almost have to sacrifice a cash cow because of that, because I've only got the 2 trades. So to get an extra couple here and there is awesome, and it's going to help me a fair bit and probably makes me sort of rethink my strategy in the early parts of the season. But we'll get into that also in the early parts of the preseason and the year as well. But also, for the first time, we'll be getting DPP changes at 3 points in the season, which is at round 6, round 12, and round 18. So that means if a player is listed in one position, but plays predominantly in another position, a la Jack Zeeble in 2021, they'll have the extra position added to their SuperCoach profile. So, I mean, there's a few guys already that we know of that are training in different positions. Scott Pendlebury's one. Yeah. Pendle's playing off half back. May rotate through the middle, so hopefully he might be one that gets that eligibility. There's someone else that you mentioned.
Zorko as well, another option.
Yep.
He's been training down back. And then potentially, the likes of Fife and Bond may hopefully get some forward eligibility, which would be
how juicy is that?
And onto another, I guess, of the main rule changes that have, affect the strategies and the day-to-day playing, and that's trades can finally be edited after the first lockout.
You're goddamn right.
Indeed. Oh, I mean, remember when was it? There was a late out, might have been round 18, and it was Newcomb. He was like one guy who...
Yeah, Newcomb and Reeves, I think it was.
Reeves, yeah.
One of those two, it was Hawks, yeah.
Ended up having to use that... I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah, it's a very shaky rule because you don't know if it's actually going to work or if you're going to use like an extra trade.
Yeah.
But it's like when you have an extra trade up your sleeve and you can like virtually trade out the bloke you've just traded in to get that extra trade back. So at least, thank God, you don't have to do that anymore. So that's going to save a whole lot of nervous energy doing that.
Definitely.
And trade boosts are also an interesting inclusion this year, as you mentioned, I think, Liam. So one option would be, just in terms of talking strategy now, turning the attention to that. Yeah. One option is potentially using them before the price changes, as we mentioned, and also keeping them up your sleeve for corrective trades without missing out on much needed cash as well.
Yeah, I think that goes to sort of what you're mentioning. It's sort of like an early season strategy with those. So using them, to make those corrective trades before price changes or to get all of the rookies that you need before the first price change. But I think it's also going to be important to hold them as long as possible. COVID still exists. And I expect there's going to be plenty of player carnage if the BBL and AFLW is anything to go by. So holding them up your sleeve where possible should hold you in good stead if there's, some players that have to isolate later on in the year. But I don't think, at the end of the day, you should probably use them early on. I wouldn't be against using them early on, even if you sacrifice them early, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can see what you mean, because it's kind of like what we, briefly touched on before. And like in my case, I was always like, I have to make corrective trades on one hand, and on the other hand, I have to get in the best cash cows.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you can't, kill two birds with one stone. So you're having to sacrifice one of those two strategies. So at least now you can actually, potentially do both. So that's going to help for, for future planning, because I know in previous years where I have had to sacrifice corrective trades, and I've stuck with a player that I thought I will, see how they go and keep the faith type thing. And then they actually lose a lot of money, and you kind of find yourself in a bit of a hole. So yeah, that kind of helps out there. But like you said, hold on to the trades and those boosts for as long as you can, because I think a lot of people will be trying to use them early. And those people who haven't really looked ahead might find themselves in a bit of a hole where later on in the year, because as we know, we're going to be upgrading, and there are still cash cows to jump on with guys debuting later in the season. So, there's that side of it as well to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another pretty great inclusion is the mid-season DPP changes. Hopefully it opens up a bit of flexibility with some DPP swings to help cover multiple positions across the field. Obviously with COVID, if you can swing, a 5 from your midfield to your forward line or anywhere, that'll be pretty helpful. But Damon, I guess strategy wise, would you wait to trade in a player who should get that DPP addition? So I'm thinking someone like Bont or Fife, or even Pendles, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because I think a new strategy that it's really opened up, and not really one that I've seen mentioned in the community as yet, but it's and probably those who play AFL fantasy are probably more in tune with this, because they've had this rule, I guess, as a part of their format for a fair while. But if we can get access to, the game time percentage of players that have played, whether it be 40% in defense, just say Pendles, for example, 40% in defense, 50% in defense, and then maybe, 50% in the midfield, or, that's probably a bad example. But yeah, if it's skewed more in favor of a position they're not currently given in SuperCoach, and it looks like they're playing more time in a different position, then you can probably forecast ahead and be like, oh, well, there's probably a good chance that they're going to be given the DPP privilege of a new line. So that's probably something to factor in. And yeah, if we can get access to that, whether it be through Champion Data, or I know there's a few different resources online that are really good in terms of, tapping into kick-in percentages and all that. So if we can get access to those raw percentages of breakdown, I think you can do it through the AFL app as well. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like Telstra Plus. It's through that if you're a subscriber, and you can get access to the, the time, not the time on ground, but also the time that they've spent in each third of the ground.
Yeah.
So that's something to look at. Yeah, for sure. So I guess, looking forward, if you can forecast that, it may mean that if you know that, say, Pendles, for example, is going to be given, a new role in defence, or defence eligibility, then you could probably say, well, I might hold off and wait for him to actually get that eligibility in defence before trading him in the midfield. So I think the one good thing is it's going to bolster both the defence and the forward line, I think, especially the forward line. Like there's, we're not really going to touch on it this episode, and we will in episodes to follow, but primos and stuff, they're pretty hit and miss in the forward line, especially compared to defence as well. I mean, they got Zach Butters, they got Dunks, Thomas, and maybe DeGoey, and outside of that, there isn't really too much. Cornelio, like as we know, he's bottom price. So a lot of people will have him already, but yeah, if we can get the likes of Fife and Bont and whatnot as eligibility, especially like up forward, that's going to be a godsend, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game changer, I think.
Absolutely. But let's move on with a swift show. So let's move on with and shift focus to the preseason carnage, Liam. As we've said earlier, that it wouldn't be a preseason without it. So it's already set in. So let's move on and touch on our new segment, again, exclusive to this preseason episode, and it is called...
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
Yes, Damon, it wouldn't officially be a preseason. We've had a little bit of carnage, and we've definitely had that thrown our way with a couple of key players already going down with injuries. One which no doubt has left you devastated, Damon. I'm actually surprised you fronted up. Surprised you're actually playing SuperCoach this year. But should we have just a moment of silence for your man, Sammy Walsh?
Yeah, he's not just my man, he's the Messiah. Yeah.
I'm not the Messiah. I say you are, Lord, and I should know I followed a few.
You may notice my eyes are a little bit red because I've been crying non-stop, and I've actually got a box of Kleenex on my desk here, close by. But yeah, and it's apt. You could probably say that it was on Valentine's Day when news broke of his injury, and I was up and about, and obviously, my fiancée Ash, I went out and got some flowers for her and stuff, and those flowers wilted when news came through, and I burst into tears. And she treated me to a nice Valentine's Day, but I was left absolutely heartbroken by the news of Sammy Walsh. So just getting into the I probably shouldn't go into detail because it'll dredge up those emotions, but reports do say that he won't be back until at least round 5, but could even be longer. I saw he did an interview outside the club, stopped by the media, and he said that he's quite willing to spend an extra few weeks on the sidelines if it means that he does come back tip top. But yeah, hopefully he can come back for my sake anyway, because I can't watch my beloved Carlton without him, because I might as well just replace the logo with Sammy Walsh's head, because
pretty much. If he changed clubs, would you follow him?
I would.
I reckon you would.
I'm not ashamed to say I would. I'd still follow Carlton, but I'd follow him.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But yeah, it's fair to say that he was first picked in my team when SuperCoach opened, and now there's a massive hole in my team. And until we meet again, sweet Prince.
Blue, you're my boy!
Anyway, we have a whole host of replacement players, but who appeals most? With McRae, Oliver, and Steele already stuck in my side, not leaving. Those are probably the 3 I'd be looking to upgrade to first if you didn't have all 3 already. After that, I really like the look of Miller. He's sort of made his way into my team. We've seen what he could do last season, and there's really no reason not to expect it to continue on this season. I think from there, it becomes a little bit tougher. I do like the look of Mitchell. He's got a high ceiling. Hopefully isn't affected by the new coach. And I think looking at his season last year, he sort of came good towards the end, especially. Jared Lyons is a bit of an avoid for me. I just can't see him growing his scoring. I think we've seen his ceiling. I think that's sort of where he is. I think he's priced at his ceiling as well. So if you were to want Lyons, I'd be getting him later. And I guess below Walshy, there's a bit of a drop off. The only guy catching my eye is
Let me
Parrish.
guess. Yes, of course.
But to be honest, I wouldn't recommend him at this stage. Like, he's the only one that I'd consider, and that's only from what I've heard from, from Match Sims is been sort of rotating through the midfield and then playing a little bit forward. So he's getting he's hitting the scoreboard a bit more, which would be good for his scoring. But I don't know. I'd want to see more from him early. So it's sort of, to me, it's probably McRae, Oliver, Steele, Miller, Mitchell would be my sort of key ones to be looking at.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you there on when you said Lyons was an avoid. I was like, is he really? And then when you said, looking back, I think he was on par at one stage with McRae, wasn't he, in terms of consecutive scores of 100? So we all know that obviously he can score quite well, but yeah, as you said, we've kind of seen his ceiling, and he's not going to improve any more than what he, I guess, has shown, especially last year. Whereas I think for me, when you spoke of Tom Mitchell, he is one guy, like, we know as well that he can score points out of his ass, especially in AFL fantasy, compared probably more so to SuperCoach. But I think we probably saw him, as you mentioned, in the latter half of last year, where he really hit his strides. And I think this is the first preseason or full preseason that he's had in a long while, because he's had injury interrupted preseasons and, delayed starts to the season where he's come in underdone. So I think in terms of his ceiling, I think there's a bit more that he can offer. And that really appeals to me in terms of that. Outside of him, I've already got McRae and Steele, who are my first 2 players. Sorry, I said before, Walsh was my first player picked, and he was. But outside of him, McRae and Steele are the 2 guys that really should continue go from strength to strength. And those are the two premium guys that I'm jumping on because of that reason. But yeah, Tom Mitchell, massive ceiling, full preseason. He's probably my, I don't want to say outright first option outside of McRae and Steele, but I think alongside him, Oliver. I really do love Oliver. I've had him in my team starting for the past 2-3 seasons at least. And Bonte's probably another one, but we spoke about him off air, and we know that he's a love child of champion data, and because of that, he's going to get easy points. But I think, like you mentioned, with the potential to have a DPP, eligibility up forward for him potentially, of spending more time up forward, that I think says to me that maybe I should look at him as an upgrade later on in the year. And Oliver, I think just on him, just his ability to tackle, I think as well, contested beast, and something which we probably should touch on just briefly as well is the new rules that have been brought in the AFL, which is holding the ball rule. And I think, those guys who are contested beasts, those guys who tackle like crazy, like a Jack Steele, those guys are going to really benefit from that rule. And I think Oliver is one of those players that may benefit. He's one of those guys that really sticks out for me.
Yeah, and I think also one thing to note with Oliver as well is just his durability. Very rarely misses. So is a good one to obviously to have for longevity. And now that I've said it, something's going to happen.
Yep.
Sorry, Melbourne supporters. Anyway, the other key injury is, of course, Aaron Hall, who did tweak his hammy in North Melbourne's intra-club. Whilst they are awaiting scans at the time of recording this podcast, it's fair to say even a minor strain probably sees him miss about 4 weeks, which would have him very, very doubtful for round one. I think from what we've heard, it sounds a bit like it's a bit more serious as well. But look, to be honest, I think this is probably a bit of a godsend for teams that did have him in, especially with the news last week of Luke McDonald returning to that role off halfback and potentially including some of the kick-ins.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. I think as well, a lot of people have forgotten about Jay-Z because he's still a factor down in defence as well. So that was like him and McDonald, I think, were the main reasons why I avoided Hall. And we've been speaking on and off as well about guys to target before we obviously recorded this podcast. And like, as you know, you pointed out, like Hall is definitely underpriced because he had a couple of games there where he was subbed off through concussion and injury and whatnot. So his price isn't a true reflection upon what his true value is. So, he's a bargain, but obviously now I think this is, obviously forced people's hands into having to look elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I am then looking, I guess, at some options. Lloyd is one of only 4 players that is actually more expensive at an extra 13.7K. So to be honest, he's an obvious choice if you don't already have him. As is, I think, Tom Stewart, who has such a great floor and just a decent ceiling for so long in his career. So again, not a bad pick. I like the look of Dawson too. I probably want to see his preseason matches, but he's been in my side this preseason. New club is generally a good thing for SuperCoach. And if the tail end of last season seems to go by, he should be in for a big one. And then another bloke I'd be looking at is Ridley. I think he's one that could bounce back in a big way. Acquisition of Jake Kelly just means that Ridley is going to be freed up to play that intercepting role that we love so much. And from what I've seen of training, that's how Essendon have sort of been wanting him to play, really seeing how they can get him to play that spare across halfback.
Yeah. The good thing about, just quickly on Hall as well, is the fact that, he, even though he's underpriced, he's still priced at 572, 900. And I think there's maybe 4 guys that are priced above him. So, and like you mentioned as well, that Lloyd's only 13,700 in terms of value, or more that you'd have to tip in to get to a Lloyd if you don't have him. But that's probably the silver lining. And I think Stewart is one that I like because he's such a mainstay in defence for the Cats, and he served us quite well in seasons gone. But coming off that, major injury that he had last year, he's one guy that I'd probably wait and see. But I mean, he's been pretty durable up until then, if memory serves correct. So and he's got that decent ceiling. So yeah, he's one to look at. And just you mentioned Dawson as well there. He has been training up on the wing as well at times and through the middle for the Crows, which is a really pleasing sign. So he may even be the new, I guess, Rory Laird in defence for us. And it's funny that he's playing for the Crows as well. But I mean, for me, like you mentioned, I mean, Lloyd, if you're crazy enough not to have him in your team, he's the number one choice, hands down. The one stat I just want to make mention about Lloyd, because a lot of people would be thinking, oh, well, his ceiling's capped. We know what he offers. But looking at a breakdown in his kick-ins for last year, he took a total of 133 kick-ins in 2021, and Dawson was the next best with 74, and then coming in third spot was Cunningham, who rounded it out with only 18. So, obviously someone's going to take the position of Dawson as the second fiddle kick-in taker. But, I mean, Dawson was well renowned for his, his accurate kicking and real high skill level. So, I think, Cunningham may take his spot to a degree, but I think we may even see the Seagull take even more chips, may steal more chips, Liam, just out of the bucket. So imagine that. So don't get you excited. I just have, but I think there's, but I think everyone's going to start with him anyway. But if we're in that camp of thinking, I'm going to be cheeky and not start with him, don't be silly, because there's reason there that his stealing's going to increase. But outside of him, obviously, Dawson's one who's a wait and see for me, I think, just to see, especially over the preseason, see how he performs in the practice game, and then obviously in the what do they call it? Are they call it the Amy? Is it still the Amy series?
Oh, yeah, I think it's Amy.
Even though it's just one game again.
Yeah.
So
Amy
we're only going to see
series. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So we're only going to see exposed form across 2 games, but yeah, wait and see for me on him. And also big raps on Whitfield, which is probably surprising to see, because you would have heard, especially last year, that I was banging on about targeting guys who are durable, especially at the start of the year. But for me, he's in my team at the moment purely because he is just real value for money for what we know he can produce. And he's renowned, like I said, to get injured at some stage during the season. Happens every year. But I think his price point probably trumps that. Just the balance between the two, I think, he's just a touch above 500K. He's real good value there for a premium. And I'm also a fan of Short, who could also benefit from the retirement of Hooley, much like, I guess, Lloyd benefiting from Dawson not being there. And then outside of him, just touching on Jack Crisp, his potential of playing up the wing and maybe through the middle at stages for the Pies, may even be that sort of swing man between Pendles and himself. So, he goes into the middle, Pendles goes into defence. And then, as you said as well, Ridley, who's currently in my side, appeals on that value basis. I guess throw a dart at any of those players. Those are the guys who I'm really, really liking at this stage of the year before we see, of course, any exposed form.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we should just quickly make some mention of some other notable players who sustained injuries over the past week. Duncan has had a setback with a calf injury and is in doubt to be fit for round 1.
Yeah, and also a big blow to our cash cow stocks as well with mature age draftee Greg Clark. He was seen, I think he participated in a portion of the Eagles match sim, but he was seen at halftime with his right arm in a sling, which obviously isn't a good sign for a round 1 debut. So fingers crossed it's only, precautionary, and scans reveal that it's nothing too major, but you'll just have to wait and see there.
Yep. And meanwhile, a couple of Pies look to be in a race against the clock to be fit for round 1. Jeremy Howe is battling a groin injury he sustained during the Pies intra-club, and Jordan De Goey is nursing a rib injury. I think it's looking like he'll miss sort of that 2-week period of the preseason, unfortunately.
Is that De Goey you mean, or is it
De Goey? Yeah, sorry, De Goey.
Yeah, I saw that the Pies came out and said, "Oh no, he'll participate in like the match sim." Maybe. And no, but he obviously he didn't, because they had their match sim yesterday, the Pies, and he didn't participate. Oh, yeah. So I think they're playing some
maybe there's some porkies, more to that.
Porky Pies there, but I think they were awaiting scans on Jeremy Howe. So probably by the time you listen to this podcast, it will have come out as to how severe his groin injury is. But yeah, if you were after him, just obviously wait and see for that news there. But now, Liam, it's time for another new segment. Jeez, it's just an episode with so many new segments, and it is exclusive to our preseason episodes. So I'm just going to say this, Liam, and just come along for the ride with me. Get those binoculars out, scale a small tree, and channel your best peeping Tom
Oh,
because it's time for the watch list.
He's a peeping Tom.
Yes, I'm sorry, Liam. I'm sorry. Well, I probably wouldn't recommend conducting your research using that exact method I just detailed, unless you want to end up in the back of a divvy van. But to each their own.
Are you talking from experience? Did Sammy Walsh make a complaint? No, Damon.
No, he hasn't.
So you weren't just going to follow him from club to club, you're following him from place to place.
No, I wouldn't do that at all. But if he was to, what do they call it?
Is that what the restraining order lawyers told you to say?
Yeah. I'm currently reading off a script, if you couldn't tell. So, yes, but otherwise I wouldn't blame him. So, but that's why you tune in to us, Liam, the good folk of the SuperCoach Edge community. That's why you tune in. We'll give you the latest on players to watch across this preseason. So again, don't do what I just detailed. It was a gag, taking the piss. So, yes. But yeah, we all know, like I mentioned earlier, about the standard primos to keep an eye on. So we'll probably touch on those guys in a little bit more detail across, the upcoming episodes. So in this ep, we'll cover off the most notable mid-prices and value options. So let's kick it off with defense.
Yes. So we've got Wayne Malira from the Crows, 271.1K. Across the preseason at Crows training, he has been spotted playing further up the ground along the wing, which is very, very promising. And at his price point, he could be a handy playing cash cow with averages of 74.1 and 79.7 in his 2 seasons prior to 2020, when he only played the 2 games before going down with injury, games in which he did manage to score 96 and 70. But scoring aside, doubt lingers over his durability and whether he can return to full flight after, basically 2 full seasons on the sidelines.
Yeah, for me, he's one to keep an eye on. He's at a juicy price point, I think. But given his injury history, just to wait and see, I think. But
yeah, definitely. I'm on the same page there.
See how he goes. Next up, we have, I'm going to call him the Pest. I don't know if he's called the Pest, in AFL circles, but he is the Pest because he's renowned as someone that gets in the faces of opposition players. And it is James Sicily, priced at $448,100, and he is returning, of course, from a season-long ACL injury. And the Pest, he comes in at a juicy price there. So some may be a little bit wary of jumping on him off the back of a major injury. I mean, Miller is probably one of those guys, fits into the mold there. Like we mentioned, but that and probably the fact that he's a bit of an unknown quantity under new coach Sam Mitchell, and as we've seen in the past with under Clarko, I guess he's been switched up forward and really stuffed up his scoring ceiling. So, but I think Mitchell's come out before and he's kind of laughed off the fact that any suggestion that he may be played anywhere outside of defence. Yeah,
that's what it sounds like, and I know he had a couple of setbacks. Sort of late last year, but appears to be flying now. Taking up that role across the back line that we hope to see.
Yeah, and with averages of 105, 93.8 and 102.9 over his previous 3 seasons, you could say he's probably got enough runs on the board to maintain confidence in his scoring ability there. So, and that's the one thing that really sticks out to me. If that's not enough to entice you, he then comes in at a discounted $104,800.
Very nice.
Discount on his starting price in 2021. So, knowing what he can score at that discounted rate, for me, he was a walk-up starter for me.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. Then we've got a Brizzy Lions player, Keaton Colin, 263.2K with both a defender and a forward, which is nice. Whilst the Brisbane youngster didn't do too much to catch the eye in the early parts of 2021. It was his end to the season that did. In round 23, he scored 87, and against quality opposition in the finals, against Melbourne and Bulldogs, he notched up a 90 and a 77. The only concerns that I have is that he's going to be competing against Rich and Zorko in that back line. So he could get relegated to more of a pocket. He's obviously taking over from sort of the Birchall role potentially, but I think he's a bit of a watch and see. I know Brisbane did have their match sim in the last couple of days, and he did have a good role, but it is important to note that Zorko didn't play. So just, keep that in mind. I think I'd like to see some form with all three of them playing. Yeah,
that's a really good point. And I think a lot of people are forgetting about Zorko. And you want to see how he actually fits into the lineup and his overall role when all three of those guys, him plus the other two guys are in there. So, Rich, I think for me, is always going to be that distributor coming out of defense. But he may be like the sort of the second link in the chain potentially. But he's definitely a wait and see. I think a lot of people are banking on the fact that, he performed well, in that last game of the season. And then, in those two games in the finals against, quality opposition. But for me, he's a wait and see. He's not a walk-up start. He's at that awkward price there as well. But as you said, it is quite nice that he's got that flexibility as a defender and a forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think. Let's move. Oh, yeah, sorry. Just quickly, if he was priced a little bit cheaper, if he was priced maybe 220, I'd probably feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah. I've got a bit of spare cash in the bank at the moment. I can probably fit him in if need be, but unless he actually blows us away in those two games, I don't think I'll get him. He's actually at the similar price point from memory anyway, to Danaher, isn't he? Last year, he was around about that point.
Yeah, about that point.
Maybe a little bit cheaper.
Maybe maybe a bit cheaper. Danaher might have been a bit cheaper, but roughly around that sort of that point. I can't remember off the top of my head now.
Yeah, but he's a bit of an unknown quantity at the moment, so wait and see with him.
Definitely with the preseason matches. Yeah, but let's move on to the midfield, Damon.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I was quick to move on there, and I cut you off. Apologies for that, but there's a reason for it because I just couldn't get in quick enough.
Your boy.
It's always, I'm like the pendulum. I'm going back and forth between Sammy Walsh and this bloke, Matty Rowell. But I'm going to say he's my second.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sorry,
enough.
I can't eclipse Walshy. But let's just say he's stepping into the mold whilst Walshy's on the sidelines. That's
fair
happy
enough.
Medium. But anyway, moving on. Rowley is priced at 342,900, which is very juicy. And what can I say? We all know his potential, but the big question mark, of course, is over his durability after a wretched run with injury in recent seasons. And some may be turned off by his vanilla run of form in 2021, but I think, a lot of people are forgetting the fact that he was eased back into games after returning from injury in round 13. And he only averaged 58% game time, which does, of course, cap your scoring ceiling, and partly accounted for his average of 68. So you've got to remember, back to his first year and what he was able to produce at full flight. That's probably a better snapshot of what he can produce when he's fully fit. And then when you factor in the discount of, again, hold on to your hats here, Liam. Hold on to I should have made mention as well, your SuperCoach.
Yes.
What does it say there? Just lean forward there. I am the KFC SuperCoach. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. I think they stuffed up there, but I think they missed a few words there. But you are wearing a SuperCoach hat. And why was that, Liam? Just quickly.
Just my casual finish in the top. I don't know what it was. 10.
It's top 1100. I think it was.
Yeah, I think, and I finished 900 and something. Got a nice little pack as a prize, which was nice in 2020.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a treat for those people who are tuning in. This is another reason why you should tune into us on YouTube and subscribe and like and comment and all those things, like a creeper. I don't know why I leant into the microphone there and said that in a creepy manner, but that's another reason why you should tune into us on YouTube, because you can see what we're wearing and just laugh at
This is how we get our clothing sponsors.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you like a Brownlow? So who are you dressed by, Damon?
I'm dressed by Cheers Cobber. Who are you dressed by there?
Just a grey t-shirt. It's plain.
Oh, plain.
I think it's a nice Cotton On number, if I remember correctly.
Oh, very nice. Well, it's got a few blank spaces there. So any sponsors out there listening, you can happily sponsor. Give us merch sponsor. Yeah. But at the moment I'm just repping Cheers Cobber, because that's my motto. But anyway, we've gone completely off track, and apologies for that. And just with Raul, you've got to factor in.
Yeah.
He is, and hold on to your hats. Yeah. Again, I'll say it before I went off on a tangent. I got sidetracked by your really good apparel. He is coming in at a discount of $152K on his starting price in 2021. So that's a big yes from me. I'm sorry. Just check it off. Check it off with me, Liam. You got the discount. You got the fact that he's my boy or secondary boy, and we know what he can score at full flat.
Yeah. I'm not as sold. I want to see his preseason matches. He's an awkward price for me. Very awkward price. I want him, like, he's one of those players that I think is just universally loved. Like, everyone wants to see him do well. So I want to see him do well, but I just don't know whether he's going to find his spot in my side at that price.
Yeah.
But
more of a watch and see for you.
Yeah, very much a watch and see. Very much a watch and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. Now moving on to our next midfield candidate, and it's Jai Caldwell, priced at 266.7k from my mob. So we had so many hopes for this man in season 2021, but injury really derailed it. All those plans in round 2.
Yeah, both
we
of
didn't
us,
get to see him.
Both of us.
Yeah.
Killed us. Forced to use trades. And Rao was one and Caldwell was one. How funny is that? Back-to-back discussion on both of these guys.
Rough, but look, I think this is his year. I really hope so.
Yeah,
From what I've seen of his preseason at the Hangar, he is fit and raring to go. In his first half, he only played a half in the intra club. He was able to rack up 14 disposals, 7 kicks, 7 handballs, kicked a goal, and he laid 6 tackles. So it's pretty good for a half of football.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Be happy.
Gee whiz.
He's a bit of an awkward price. And I don't currently have him in my side, but I'm trying to, squeeze him in somehow. Yeah. The only thing to note is that last year he did have that forward and midfield eligibility, which he hasn't got this year. And I don't see him getting forward eligibility with midfield. I don't see him getting a mid-season DPP switch. I just don't think he'll play anywhere other than the midfield.
Yeah, he's definitely one that I can currently fit him into my team. And it'd probably be at the expense of someone like... so I've got like 3 of my remaining spots in the midfield for rookies. So a bit of an insight here. Horn Francis is probably the same as most people. Horn Francis, and then it's Dacos, and then I had it for Greg Clark or one of the other rookies, so Driscoll, one of those guys. But I can actually fit in Caldwell at the moment. So if he kills it in the 2 games that the Dons play over the preseason, I think that's enough for me to say, to bring him in.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be trying to squeeze him in somehow.
Yeah, yep. I think he's good value for money, and always talk about in the preseason, like last year, especially playing cash cows. And it's a thing, because if you can actually score well enough, you're killing 2 birds with one stone there as a guy that can make you money, and you can eventually upgrade to a genuine primo. But obviously, if you can make money and bust out a few sizable scores as well, it definitely helps.
Definitely.
But another guy, I should say, who can bust out a sizable score from limited game time is Charlie Constable, coming in priced at a relatively juicy price. It's appealing at 213,400. And Charlie Constable, he's very much a forgotten man, I think, because he's obviously gone up north to the Suns. He's a bit more of a mature ager in comparison to the young list that the Suns have.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably enough to say that he will get an opportunity to play, probably more so, in terms of game time, I guess, compared to the Cats, because it was so frustrating to see that he was the sort of guy that could come on limited game time, absolutely kill it, and then he would get dropped next week. It's almost like Scott was playing funny buggers there, and almost like he was sleeping with Scott's wife or something. I don't know. Not putting it out there. Not saying that's the case, but the coach had something against him. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
For me, he was that ability to, what do they call it? Like points per minute was quite high for him. So at a new club, I think for me, look out. And if he can actually replicate those scores that he was scoring at the Cats, but with a longer game time, I think I'll probably roll the dice on him.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's one that I wouldn't look at his averages in seasons gone by, but look at his points per minute, because he really never got the opportunity. I think I don't know why. I think maybe it's he's not a particularly quick player. Maybe that's what Geelong were wanting, but I don't know. I think he's a good one to watch. I'd be watching what his preseason games look like, but I don't think he'd be a bad pick. He's a great price, and I think he's going to be able to rack up plenty of points.
So, sorry, just on that, just in terms of his points per minute. So you're scoring 1.2. Averaged out to 1.1 across the games that he's played. So if he plays a full game, you think he's going to score relatively well. What's that, 80 plus? Thereabouts,
80 plus.
80, 90 plus, if you can average the same points per minute. So, I mean, it remains to be seen how he performs in a struggling Gold Coast team compared to, a Geelong team that's at full flight. But yeah, one to have a look at.
Yeah, definitely. And Dylan Stevens from the Swans, 167.8K. Just a bit of a quick note on Stevens. He has been training with the mids and is raring to go. I'd be watching his preseason games, but by all reports, could be a great pick, especially at his price point. Quite juicy there if he gets a midfield role.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a couple of guys there who are no longer there, like Dawson's obviously one, we spoke of him, but also George Hewitt, who's crossed over to my mob, Baggers. I think there's JPK's being phased out. Yep. They may spend more time forward potentially. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, there's a whole sort of they're ushering in the next phase of Swans. Yeah. So
and I mean, realistically, what's his name? Longmire is happy to play the kids as well. So I don't think there'd be too much concern about whether if he gets a game, he should, get a decent run at it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Moving on to the rucks, and it's an interesting sort of array of blokes that you can choose, especially at R3. And we've been probably spoiled with over the past few years. We had Rolly O'Brien at one stage a couple of years ago. Then last year we had Flynn, I think it was.
Yeah, Pitney,
as well. Hunter was his name? That's the Saints.
Yeah, Hunter.
He flopped.
He flopped. Who else was there? There was been plenty. Flynn.
Yeah. Yep.
Reeves.
Lynch. Yeah, Reeves. So, point being, I guess, is that like in previous years to that, like a lot of people would be using the R3 position as a loophole option for the VC loophole, of course. But now you can probably change up tack because there's at least three guys here that you could factor in to that R3 spot. And the first one is Braden Pruce. And he comes in at a bit of a discount, and he's priced at 204,700, and he's the forgotten man of 2021 because heading into that pre-season, he was spoken about again before he injured himself and then just didn't take the park for the rest of the year. And he offers great value, and he should be able to skyrocket in price quickly, you'd think, with some decent scoring. He'll hopefully get to debut for the Giants this season, whether or not it's in round one, who knows. But Liam, what do you have in terms of your mindset? I know for me, I'll probably be looking elsewhere, just because I still have that doubt over whether or not he can, take that outright number one ruck mantle from the get-go, or whether or not he's forced to battle against Flynn for that number one mantle. And plus as well, the fact that he had virtually that whole year off says to me that he's a bit of a gamble, especially at that inflated price.
Yeah, definitely. I've currently got him in that spot just because it's sort of with R3. Sorry, I personally would steer away from R2. I've seen a lot of people have him in R2 and it's too risky for me. I've got him in R3 currently, and it's a little bit of a case of he's sort of the max price I'd be looking at for that position. So if he doesn't, so it's basically just sort of budgeting for him essentially. But he's one that he isn't locked into his position in R3. I think he should be able to make some cash. I'd want to see his preseason. He's a bit of a watch and see, but I think I'd be leaning towards him if he looks good in the preseason matches. But I would be a little bit fearful of Flynn lurking in the sidelines. But I think at his price point, if he can hit out some great scores, some decent scores as a ruckman, I don't think it'll take long for him to make some coin, and then we can just move him on. And not have to worry too much about Leon Cameron, swapping him out for someone else.
Yeah.
Or Mumford coming in the mid-season draft.
Oh, Mummy, what a pest. He's
the pest.
Yeah. Gee whiz. But who else we got, Liam? There's another guy priced around the... Oh, yeah. Is it the same price, I think?
Just a little bit more. 3K more is Max Lynch, moved obviously from the Pies to the Hawks. I'd be looking elsewhere. From all reports, he's fallen behind Reeves. So I wouldn't expect him to be a starter for round one. I think they'll be going with a McAvoy-Reeves sort of combo as their rucks. Even though Segler obviously has moved on, from what I've heard from their intra-clubs, and Max Lynch has sort of gone down to Reeves in sort of the battle. So I'd be looking elsewhere.
Oh, that's fair point as well. And I think, for $3,000 more expensive, you'd prefer to roll the dice on Bruce, especially if Bruce is your R3, because, there's more chance that he's gonna play, even if he's, battling for a number one spot against Flynn. But there's a cheaper option as well for those of you frugal out there like myself who want to save every penny to put elsewhere across other lines in your team, and that man is Sam Hayes, and of course a rookie for Port Adelaide, priced at $123,900, and I think he's been on the Port Adelaide list for about 4 or 5 seasons or something, and he hasn't made his debut. But now with the departure of Laddams going across to the Swans, his long-awaited debut could be on the card. So look for him to maybe potentially debut early on. But it's probably dependent more so on how he, performs and how much he impresses during the 2 preseason hit-outs. I haven't really seen too much come out from the Port Adelaide camp about him. But, who knows if he plays a game. But I think, as a saving of 80K odd from, a Bruce or a Lynch, that's a lot of coin that you could use to use elsewhere in your team. And that's probably part of the reason why I'm looking at him at this stage. Yeah,
definitely. I think just, keep an eye out, see how he goes, and see what it looks like before pulling the trigger on Sam Hayes. But let's move on to the forwards. And first up, we've got Stephen Caniglio at 261.3K. Now, I don't know how I feel about the pick of Cogs. Initially, I did feel like he was a great pick, obviously at that heavy discount and with what he's able to produce. And I still do think he is to an extent, but I think his inclusion depends on what the rest of your team looks like. Yeah. So in one of my iterations of my team, he was in F3, which, seemingly isn't too bad. But my concern is if he fails to fire early or gets marooned in the forward line or gets injured, he's at such an awkward price point that you'd only be able to really trade down early on. If he was your F4 or F5, I can probably see more value in it. So he's more a player that I'd want to be mindful of the position in which he sits in my team, if that makes sense. If he's my F3, I don't think I'd be going with him. I'd be doing everything I can to get him down to F4 or F5.
I think at the moment I've got him as my F3 from memory. The main reason being is that the risk is kind of offset by the fact that I think a lot of people will be starting with him.
No, that's true.
But I know what you're saying, in terms of being at that awkward price point, unless you've got money in the bank, like our theme song says, we've got cash in the bank. It'll definitely help you. If he does fail to fire, if you need to upgrade him to someone, then you're going to be ahead of the pack. But I think a lot of people will be probably spending, or not keeping a lot of money in the bank. So, I think reports came out from Leon Cameron, and I don't know again how much you can read into this in terms of belief, but he came out and he sent out a quote. Basically, Cogs has been spending most of the preseason, and he elaborated and said 80% in the midfield. And he said, when he's fit and confident playing deep forward, he has been a weapon for us and we'll continue to go down that path. So it's a bit of an each way bet there. So it's yes, he's going to play more. He's going to play time up forward, but also he's been training in the midfield. So indications are that he should spend more time in the midfield, but it's very cryptic there. So I'm going to start with him, either whether or not he's in my F3 or F4, but just purely because I think that risk is offset, but I totally feel what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I can get him down to an F4 or even somehow an F5, I don't think I will. But if I give it to F4, I'd feel a bit more comfortable. I think there's some other guys who are priced similarly or slightly more expensive who I'd have more confidence in, I guess.
Yep. Is it any one of these guys? Would one of them be, Liam, Jade Gresham? He's priced at $299 1,000 potentially. Well, there's a few obvious question marks over him. He was returning from yet another injury-interrupted season. I think he's had quite a few over the past few seasons. Obvious huge raps on him. But question also remains whether or not he's going to get a proper go running through the middle. It's long been touted to say that he's going to play more time in the middle, but then going to, like, even last year, for example, he's spending more time up forward with stints in the middle. And he's been used sort of sparingly as a midfielder as opposed to, the opposite, which, he's found himself marooned in the forward line at times. So for me, I think at that price point, he can be classified as a playing cash cow. But again, the fact that he's returning from another injury or an injury-interrupted season, doubts linger in my mind as to whether or not I'm confident in starting with him.
Yeah, I think at that price point, again, it's very, very awkward. It's a much higher. It's 30 extra K on almost 40K on Caniglio. And I think with his injury sort of history, that would lead me to have some concerns. But yeah, I'd probably lean away from Jade Gresham. But what I would be considering is the next guy on the list, and that's Cam Rayner, priced at 278.6K. He has been training predominantly in the engine room for the Lions during their match sims. But I guess coming off of an ACL, the question is how quickly he can make an impact. Has only really shown glimpses when he's fleetingly in that forward of midfield role in the past. Could he do a Petrarca and just really break out? I guess maybe Zorko playing in the back line might help him out, free up a spot in that midfield.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, because I was thinking like how he fits in the midfield, but I know, as you said, like he's been training with the midfielders, with the first choice midfielders, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. The doubt still lingers. As you said, it's kind of like Petrarca in a sense that we all know that he's going to break out and he's going to eventually play in the midfield. Whole time. But it's just kind of like as to what point, like he's going to break on the scene straight away, or is he just going to play a few games and then ease into it and then he's going to burst? Because again, he's at that awkward price point. Do you really want to spend that amount of money on a player that could punch you out a, inconsistent 70, 80 and then drop down to a 50? Really depends, I guess. Like, yeah, again, he's another guy that I'm really paying close attention to, I think, because of that reason. But yeah, he's on my watch list for a reason, and he could fill that spot. Even potentially as that F3 instead of Canelio.
I think he's one that I would consider in that role. But I guess it is important to note at 278K, if he's going to make 150, he sits at 428. It's almost sort of getting to that point where he's almost, as a forward, potentially wanting to be someone that you want to keep. If he was a little bit, and I think that's where Jade Gresham sort of sits at 299. Because add 150 to that becomes 449, is getting closer to that point where you don't really want to be trading him out. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
it's an awkward price point, that 250 to 300. But you know who's not in that price point, who's a bit cheaper than that?
I do.
But Charlie Kerner.
Yeah.
Priced at 224.3K. Very nice.
He's very he's good value for money because I'm going to sound like a true Carlton supporter here, but he has been, and I think they had the trial match sim yesterday, I think it was, or the day before maybe, but he's been impressing across the preseason, and more so because of his trademark leap, strong hands and skillful footwork in front of the big sticks. And that's on full display. And I think Carlton, they released a bit of a sample, a bit of an appetizer, a bit of a taster. And geez, it got me up and about, Liam, in more ways than one. But all signs are pointing, and yes, pointing. I emphasize that word, upwards to a return to fitness and form. But yeah, it's mainly those, like I identify those key strengths, and those are the main things that stick out to me, that if he's able to play at full flight, like he's showing that he can do in the match sim and in training and stuff, I mean, he's going to make us bulk coin. Even though he kind of fits into that mold. He's a tall forward, a key position player. Do you go for those guys? And I'm not really gung-ho on them. But as you saw last year with Danaher, the ability, and I think he can score just as well as Danaher and produce the same sort of, I guess, value for money in terms of profit. So for me, fingers crossed that everything comes together well. But if he can stay on the park, he's going to make us a lot of money.
He reminds me of the Danaher from last year pick, sort of similar price point, similar sort of history of injury as well. Could be history repeating itself there. So just keep an eye out there. But let's move on to some others to watch, and we won't, go into too much detail on these guys. We'll just sort of give you some names to watch out for. In defense, be watching out for Kemp, Sin, DeConning, Dean, and McDonough, I think is how you pronounce his name, from the Dons. Yep. In the midfield, it's Jason Horne-Francis, Dacos, O'Driscoll, Sitsis, Mead, Hobbs, and Ward. In the forward line, Skinner, Hollins, Magnus, Motlop, Willie Rioli, Stengel, McCartan, and Rochelle. And there's, plenty more rookies, so just keep an eye on them. We'll obviously be touching on those closer to the beginning of the season once we see a bit more exposed form through the practice matches. So definitely stay tuned, but definitely keep an eye out on our socials as well, where we'll sort of hint at anything that comes out about any of those guys.
Yeah, we've already we've been doing up little fancy graphics of individual players.
Schmick.
And I guess, for any insights that we hear, whether it be from coaches, assistant coaches, the senior coach, assistant coaches, or the club itself, we'll be obviously tweeting out as probably predominantly the main, social avenue that you should seek out in terms of our channels, where we can keep you abreast of any new updates and insights into especially these rookies as well. But Liam, as we previewed at the top of the show, and I'm sure a lot of people have been waiting with bated breath, because we have officially kicked off our Patreon for 2022. And it comes with quite a few benefits to those of you who want to jump on board and support us. And no matter, we've got 3 tiers, first off, and whether or not you jump on as a tier 1 member, a tier 2 or tier 3, doesn't matter. We are fully appreciative of your support. But just rolling through. So tier 1's going to cost you $5 a month. So cost of a large coffee at some cafes, or a little bit more. Maybe some cafes actually $4.50 for a coffee, which is crazy. But for the cost of 1 coffee over the course of a month, you'll get access to our exclusive Discord, which is obviously a community where you can jump on and chat with other diehards in the SuperCoach Edge community, have a chat to myself and Liam when we can log on, and throw a bit of banter left, right, and center and have a bit of fun. On top of that, you also get access to exclusive bonus content. So we'll be having some interviews, exclusive chats across the season, and putting out little tidbits as well, which will be exclusive to Patreon members. So have a look at that as well if you're keen for that. Second tier goes up to $10 a month, which is, again, the cost of 2 coffees over the course of a month. It's always easy when you contextualize it in terms of coffees. But yes, tier 2, $10, and obviously comes with the benefits of tier 1. So you get access to Discord, that exclusive bonus content, but you also get access to an exclusive fortnightly live stream with, it was a chat pretty much with yourself, your fine self, Liam, and myself. So it's pretty much like a one-on-one. You can have a chat with us. There was a couple of fine folk that jumped on for stages last year in terms of that tier 2. And it was great fun, and hopefully we got to know them a bit better as well, and imparted a bit of our knowledge and insight, just going into trades per week, things like that, that nature, and a bit of banter as well, which is always good fun. And then tier 3, which is it's the premium tier. So in terms of the name of tiers as well, so tier 1's the rookie, tier 2 is the mid-pricer, quite apt, and then tier 3 is the primo tier. So that's going to cost you $15 a month, but when you speak about it in context of what you get in return, we talk about return, value for money, return on investment, that sort of thing. And this is the most exciting because you get access to the Cash League. And it's something that a lot of people have been asking us about. When are you going to start a Cash League? And here it is, folks, because you get all the benefits from tier 1, of course, tier 2, but also access to compete in this exclusive SuperCoach Edge Cash League against Liam and myself. And it's only 1 Cash League, and you'll be playing for a top prize of $400, a shiny SuperCoach Championship ring, which in itself is you'll be able to put on your mantelpiece and brag to those of us in the Discord and your mates as well. And talking about bragging, you get bragging rights by jumping on as a guest. You got a guest spot on the potentially the last episode of the season or thereabouts towards the end of the year with us on the podcast, and you can brag to your heart's content about beating both Liam and myself. But I must make mention that positions are capped at 16 spots. So obviously an 18-man league, and 2 of those are taken up by both of us, Liam. Yeah. And must make mention though, get in quick because 2 of those spots have already been snapped up. So it means that 14 spots remain. So if you're keen, get in quick. Yeah. Get in quick.
Yep. And as a bonus, for those unlucky participants who do miss out on the major prize in that cash league at season's end, so you don't win the grand final, you'll go into the running for a super special SuperCoach Edge prize. We'll have more details on that later.
Yep. And it's
a mystery.
Yeah, it is a bit of mystery, and it could be anything really. It could. Well, let's probably confine it. So it's not going to be.
No, it's not going to be anything.
It's not going to be a turd in a bag that we're going to leave on your doorstep.
Man, Clemens hate shit. Here he comes.
What the hell is it? What do you want? Sure, this priest barber is one of those flaming bags again. Poop again.
He called the shit poop.
It'll be exclusive merch, which we haven't released before. So yeah, check out our Patreon for those T's and C's and all those finer details as well, and how you can be eligible. And there's a few more nitty gritty type rules around that. And I think if you finish outside the finals, you might get a couple of entries into the raffle of the major prize. Yeah. So anyway, where can they find this, Liam? Where should they seek
so
out?
If you head to www.patreon.com/SuperCoach Edge, you'll be able to find out some more information, and you'll also be able to join our Patreon, and we'll also have a link to that on our socials as well.
Well, Liam, for those of you who have tuned in to YouTube will have seen the sun is setting. My face is getting brighter and shinier because I probably should have set up an external light here, but we'll do that. It's our first episode on YouTube as well, not just the first episode for the year. So as you can see, sun setting and the sun is setting. How about this for a segue on our first episode for season 2022? But first, just a reminder, as we always do, for those fans out there, how they can follow us, keep abreast of all the news and updates. Where can they head to, Liam?
God, I'm going to be rusty on this one. On YouTube, just search SuperCoach Edge, and don't forget to like and subscribe. On Twitter, you'll find us at @SuperCoach_Edge. You'll find David at DamoJ88, myself at LiamEvans_95. And on Facebook and Instagram, just search SuperCoach Edge and you will find us there.
Absolutely. And should make mention before we officially sign off, talking about Walsh, hopefully I'm in a good state for next episode, Liam, because as you know, tomorrow, as we're recording this, I'm going under the knife, as you have done before, for a gallbladder related gallstone issue. Yes. So I've taken a few of your tips, and I'll be in hospital for at least a day doing some extra study. But I must probably say that I felt a little bit sorry for Walshy having to go to hospital. So I'm just there for
doing the same.
That's all. Just doing the same. But if I'm wincing in my next episode and I sound like I've been kicked by a horse, that's probably it. So just
it'll explain a lot.
Yeah, probably more so than normal. But anyway, on that note, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, and we'll catch you next week.